The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Monday. It's the day before Election Day. Don't worry, we're not going to talk about that endlessly all day today because I know you have been hearing a lot about that on your televisions. Instead, we're going to be talking about topics having to do with autism and how you and I can be the most efficient, most effective member of a team working with a child on the autism spectrum, helping them to reach their fullest potential. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, a grandparent, a concerned neighbor, I know that if you're with us, that is one of your main concerns. And I'm thrilled to be here with you today so that we can talk about a bunch of different things that are going to help us to help our children. We're also going to talk a little bit about things that we can do to help our children. I know a lot of you are recovering from Sandy, and things that we can be doing when the routine gets upset to help our children to be able to cope. It's hard enough for us and our expectation of them being able to get through events that are life-changing. You know, we need to shift our priorities a little bit, but there are some things that we can do to help them. So we're going to talk about that and a lot more today. Want to remind all of you that this show is meant to be interactive. The whole point of this show is for you guys to weigh in, tell us what you think, ask us questions, say, I need a show about this. Whatever's going on in your living room, whatever's going on in your bathroom, because we do talk about that kind of stuff from time to time as well. So if you need a video about potty training, you need an expert in here talking about potty training, we hope you'll tell us. So how can you get a hold of us? Lots of different ways. And Emily, our wonderful technical director, is going to put some of those on the screen for you right now. Pick and choose what's best for you. But I want to remind you that if you want to watch us live, the best place to do that, the only place to do that right now, is on www.autism-live.com. If you're watching us there now, you'll see that there is a box that above it says Shannon is answering right now. If it says that, that means we're live. You can type whatever you'd like into that box. It's free. You don't have to register. You don't even have to log in. How wonderful is that? Hit enter. It shows up magically here on my screen. You can write in anything. You can tell me about your weekend. You can tell me where you're watching us from. We know we're in 103 different countries in all 50 states in the United States. Or you can tell us what's going on in your household and ask a question. It doesn't necessarily have to do with what we're talking about right now because you take priority. All right, so all those different ways of getting in touch with us. And as always, I'd like to remind you guys that we're going to talk about autism. We're going to talk about a whole host of topics, including ABA, applied behavior analysis. But I am not an expert in autism. I'm not an expert in ABA. I'm not an expert in nutrition or a whole lot of things I'd like to be an expert in. But I'm a mom. That's my credential here. I am a proud autism mom. I have a son who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he is now about to be 9.5. And we like to express the halves, and because it's part of what we have, right? And he is doing wonderfully because we happened to meet the right people who gave us the right information. And information is so key on this journey. So I'm here to pay that forward, that information that we got, and help to hook you up with the information you need to get your child the help and support that they need, because our kids are worth it. You're worth it. So use and abuse me, ask me for information. It's my job to track it down and get the person who can help you either via email or here in the studio so that you can ask questions. Speaking of which, I'm going to be reminding you all this week on Wednesday, it's finally the day. Our first episode of Ask Dr. Doreen on Wednesday. Dr. Doreen Granpeche, who is a visionary in the field of autism. Brilliant woman who has been working with our kids for over 20 years. She doesn't look it, but she has. And she's going to be with us now on Wednesday morning starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You want to tune in because you get to ask her questions live. How fabulous is that? And if you want to ask, some of you have already been writing in your questions, and I've got a list of them already. But if you want to ask a question ahead of time, go ahead and take advantage, send it in to us, and we will be happy to have her answer that question. It's going to be every week, Wednesday mornings. It's the time where we're going to get our answers to the questions we've all been wanting. I can't wait. I'm so excited. So that's on Wednesday. All right. We like, as you know, to start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when we take on one word, one phrase, one anagram, and figure out what in the hey nani are these experts talking about. It's important to make friends with the jargon. I know I resisted it for a long time. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I said, just speak plainly. And then I discovered that took a lot of time in the meetings, and that when I took the time to understand the words that they were using, I got more done. And so I'm still gathering jargon words myself, and we have a whole bunch of new insurance jargon terms that we're going to start to take on. I believe that's next week. But today, our jargon term, it's one of the ones that we are going to hear really early on in this journey through autism. Expressive language. You'll hear especially when you go to IEP, you'll hear them say, oh, well, your child's expressive language is blah, 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 and your child's receptive language is blah, 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 blah. And they seem like terms that are far away and that don't affect our everyday life, but I'm here to tell you it's quite the contrary. So let's look at our actual definition for expressive language. The production of language, including speech, signing, or gesture for communication. Okay, as our terms go, our actual definitions, not a bad one. But let's take a look at our working definition. It's the child's ability to communicate their needs. Let's remember that when we're talking about expressive language, that it can be the child signing, it can be using a picture exchange system, but it's language that goes this way. Can your child communicate to you what they want? For some children, that means pointing. For other children, that means grunting and making noises. For some children, it means pointing to a picture. For some people and some children, it means typing something onto a computer or picking pictures on a computer to put together a sentence. And for other kids, it means using some words, and yet other people, it means complete sentences. We want for our children to have high expressive language, because when we have high expressive language, we have lower challenging behavior. Think about this. If your child can tell you, I'm wet, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm unhappy, I'm cold, then they don't have to be flinging themselves on the floor. And we can teach functional communications to all children. The amount of functional communication changes, and the ease of functional communication wide, right? All of our kids are going to be in different places on this big, wide spectrum. But we need to make sure that all of our kids get to functional communication. There was a mom who wrote in not that long ago and said, I just wish that my child could say to me in some way, I want a baked potato and I want sour cream and I want bacon bits on it. This is not a lot to ask in life, but it would end so many tantrums if my child, because he gets frustrated, you know, we have a PEC sign for potato, but then to say, I want it this way. And it was so pointed poignant to me because we don't think about all the different things in life that we have the opportunity to be able to convey, and that our children deserve that same opportunity. So we're going to talk about expressive communication this week and how important it is, but I want you to know that there are some great apps out there for our kids that can help them if we're at that place where they can point to a potato, but we need to enrich that before we get to speech, if we get to speech, so that they can be able to say bacon bits and sour cream, don't make it hot, or do make it hot, no pepper. Our kids, as I said, deserve that. All right, so that is our jargon term for the day. Tomorrow we'll talk about the other side of it, receptive language. All right, we always start the day with a question for you. We hope that you participate. You guys have been doing such a great job participating on Facebook and tweeting in and writing in about your answers to the question of the day. And I have to remind you, it not only helps you when you do that, but it helps somebody else. Sometimes somebody doesn't even know the question to ask. And when you guys answer the question of the day, it informs everybody else and helps them to know that they're not alone. So today's question is, what social skill is your child great at demonstrating? A lot of times we focus on what our kids can't do, and I think it's important to look at the other side and think about what can they do. And our kids have very unique talents. So think about your child socially and what are they good at? I've met a lot of kids in the last couple of weeks that maybe didn't have great even functional communication skills, but I could see the social skills that were there. There was one child who liked to just rub your arm, and that's a very social thing. That's saying, I'm here, and I want to interact with you. It was just very sweet and special. Met a young woman when we were at Denim & Diamonds, and we're going to talk about that in just a little while. Met a young woman at Denim & Diamonds that loves to smell people and give them hugs. And so she was giving me a hug, and she wanted to smell me, poor child, and wanted to smell my microphone, and likes to smell people's hands. And you know, that's a very social thing too. So that's a reaching out. So our question for you today is, what social skill does your child demonstrate and do well? I've talked before on the show that my son, who unfortunately he inherited from me, that he's not good at remembering people's names. And because it's hard for me, I have not been the best at being able to teach him that. But how he compensates for that, it's very interesting. When they taught him about shopping and safety skills when you're in a store, one of the things that he was taught is when somebody has a name tag, that's a good signal that they may be a worker in this store. It's just a clue, right? It isn't always true, but it's a good, possibility. So he tends to notice their name, and we'll be standing there talking to them, and he'll say, well, thank you, Shirley, and calls them by name. And it's very interesting because he gets immediate reinforcement for it, and they go, well, thank you, and what's your name? And he gets into a conversation, and now, they have greeters at some stores, and there's a couple of greeters who know him by name, and he knows them by name, and he'll walk in and say, hi, Shirley, how are you today? And it's just the most amazing thing to me, because this is the child who had been completely oblivious to other people, completely oblivious. And, that I would have to constantly direct him and say, somebody's talking to you, and look at them. And in the beginning, that was really, really rough. And now he, hi, Shirley, how are you today? Very, very sweet. And he will remind me sometimes and say, people like to be called by their name, Mom. What? It's a very happy thing. These wonderful moments in autism. So write in, and we're going to have some time later on today to look at what you got. I can't wait to hear all the social things that your kids do. All right. We always have a topic of the week. Can you guess what the topic of the week is? It is dun, 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 social skills. We're really going to start to work on this. And you know why this week? Because this is in prep. We know that holidays are coming up, and especially for those of us in the United States, we have Thanksgiving coming up. It's a time when you get together with people, have people sitting at your table, or you go to sit at somebody else's table, and we want to start to work on some things so that maybe by the time Thanksgiving comes, that our child will be just that much more prepared for the social aspect of Thanksgiving. So just to let you know, that's why we're talking about that. And some of the different things that we're talking about today, of course, it's Monday, so we have to visit the stress tip. And we've got, I think, a really good one that's important for me and important for everyone, especially in this week of some extra added stress, right? We've got some November cooking for you that Emily and I went into the kitchen, and we've got some November cooking. And we have our language tip today that is going to help us with social interaction. How do we teach gender to our children? So that's a really exciting thing, plus more, and we'll have the new A word for you as well today. But of course, we throw everything to the side if you guys write in. So please take this opportunity and give us a shout and tell us what you'd like us to talk about. We'll take a break and be back with our stress tip after this.
My son,
my brother,
My daughter is one of the
1 in 88 children.
on the autism spectrum.
I have autism,
I have autism,
I have autism,
and I want you to see me as an individual.
and not as a label.
I want to find out why my brother has autism.
I want the government to say that
Autism is a public health crisis.
I need to know who will take care of my child when I'm gone.
I want to know what treatments.
What solutions are out there for my child?
We need insurance reform.
In all 50 states.
I want autism to be an unavoidable topic for those running for office this fall.
I want my students to be
safe in school.
I want the bullies to leave me alone.
Autism Speaks encourages all Americans to ask candidates, how will you make a difference for those living with autism?
I want a Senate,
A president.
A Congress
that recognizes autism
as an urgent public health
Crisis it is.
I want our lawmakers to listen.
Make your voice heard this election. Visit autismvotes.org.
It is time for the stress tip for the week, and you guys just saw a promo for Autism Votes, and we all know that Election Day is tomorrow, right? And so I wanted it to be a stress tip this week for all of us in this very hectic, busy, crazy week. But it applies to not just election week, it really applies to every week, especially as we move into the treadmill of holidays. The idea of acceptance versus contentment. Everybody take a moment and stop and think about that. That there are a lot of things that happen in our day that you might be breezing through your day and saying, okay, I know that I've got an OT appointment at 3 o'clock, and I know that I've got speech at 4:15, and then I got to get dinner cooking, and I got all this laundry to do, all these different things that are going on, and you've got it semi under control, right? And then they call and say, I'm sorry, the language pathologist is not going to be able to be there at 4:15. They can only be there at 2:15. And you kind of have to roll with the punches, right? That's all part of this journey through autism as a parent anyway. And what do, right? It's so easy to go into this place of resentment and feeling like, why can't it just be what I need it to be, right? But that takes time and that takes energy, and it ratchets up the stress level. Instead, if we minimize the amount of time that we spend on that and move into acceptance and realize that acceptance does not mean that we're happy about it, right? Acceptance and contentment are very far from each other. But if we accept, okay, it's happening at 2:15, it's not happening at 4:15. I can't do anything about that, so I'm going to focus my energy on what I can accomplish and accept it. And I don't have to be happy about it. Contentment is elusive. I don't know too many people who get to contentment and stay there for very long. You can have moments of contentment and go, things are okay right now. And that's a really important thing. But if we're in a constant state of thinking that we're going to be in contentment, then we're going to be in resentment. Instead, if we focus on when things happen, starting with when our child is diagnosed with autism, you know, I think there is a period of time in which we grieve for what we thought was going to be, what we thought could have been, right? And then our reality becomes something different. But the moment that we get into acceptance about that and say, okay, this is the hand I was dealt, I'm going to stop arguing that and figure out what I can be doing. It's really hard to be in action while we're arguing what is. And that's the whole purpose of getting to acceptance. Don't have to like it. Don't have to be content with it. Can be working to change it, but we need to get into the action. And I promise you that when we do, when we get into the acceptance and stop arguing it, and we start getting into the action, the stress level, right? And that's what we need to do for ourselves and for our kids. It's harder for our kids. Sometimes for our kids. There was something that happened the other day, and my son said to me, he goes, well, I don't understand why this happened. And I explained it to him, right? And sometimes our kids get stuck into a groove, just like sometimes we do. And I explained to him why this wasn't going to happen. There was nothing we could do about it. Let's move on, right? 15 minutes later. I don't understand why this happened. And I went over it again, right? Because his stress level is still high. And what I realized as he was asking me the third time, a half an hour later, was that I had to get him to acceptance. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but I said to him, okay, here, once again, here's the explanation. I walked him through, is there any possibility that this can be anything different right now? And he said to me, no. And I said, okay, because we're taking a lot of time, we're spending a lot of time on this. Is that what you want to do, or would you rather be doing something else? And I said, because realize we can take as much time on this as you want, but it's not going to change it. And that's when he crossed over into acceptance and said, okay, I get it. Let's do something else. We can do that for ourselves, and we can help our children to do that. And what we will see is that the stress dials down. So as you go through this week, there's going to be a lot of things that people aren't going to be content with, right? We don't have to be content, but we don't want to waste our energy any longer than we have to. We want to get to acceptance and get back into, okay, what do I have at my disposal? What can I do? Into action. That's what acceptance does for us. And then when we do that, stress reduces. I wish that for you, a very stress-free, acceptance-filled, waiting on contentment week. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we've got a news story for you that I think is really exciting. Stick with us.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Grand-Pichet. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Ask Dr. Doreen. We like to cover a wide variety of news stories here on the show, and I said to somebody the other day, it feels like lately all the news stories that we've had on have been really tragic and really dismaying news. And so I'm so thrilled today that we have something exciting to report on. There's a young man by the name of Julian Levy, and you may have seen this in the news over the weekend. His dad is a psychologist, and at the dinner table, Julian was 12 years old, by the way, when this came about, and you're seeing a picture of him right now. His dad was sitting at the dinner table and talking about one of the things that tends to go hand in hand with autism, the inability to, or unwillingness, depending on the child, to make eye contact. It's aversive for some of our kids. And the son was hearing his dad talk about it, and the son started asking some questions, and the dad said, you know, there are two schools of thought on why people tend to, neurotypical developing people tend to look at people in the eye. One school of thought says that we're just drawn to human eyes. It's just instinct, we're drawn to human eyes. The other school of thought says we're drawn to faces, and eyes just happen to be in the faces. Now, why does this make a big difference? It actually makes a big difference because when our children don't do it, they're not reinforced by it. We want to figure out how to make it reinforcing for them. And the two schools of thought suggest that there are two different types of reinforcement. So which one is it? And the dad was talking about developing a study that would help to point to which one it is in neurotypical people so we can start to figure out how then to teach this skill. And of course, we've been teaching eye contact for a long time, but maybe this could make it that much more effective, more efficient. So here's this 12-year-old at the table, and he says, "Dad, I've got an idea of how you can do this." And he suggested, he's really into Dungeons and Dragons, and he suggested, why don't you have people look at a wide variety of different kinds of creatures, some of them human, some of them humanoid, and some of them monsters who have eyes in different places in different directions, and hook them up to an apparatus, and you see him wearing it right there, that will register where their eyes look. Will they look at the face of the monster, or will they look at the eyes of the monster? And so they were able to do this study, and the son, Julian, actually helped to write the study. It just came out in Pediatrics magazine yesterday, and what they discovered is that in neurotypical young people, that they look at the eyes, that they're not looking at the face, they're looking at the eyes. Of course, there's more study that needs to be done to find out more information about this, but it's going to help us to be able to teach this important skill to our children. We want to make sure that we're making it reinforcing for them to look at eyes. And I'm wondering if there isn't even a possibility of flipping the study a little bit and having, and then of course they're talking about having children and young adults on the spectrum, testing them to see where their eyes look at the monster. But I'm wondering what would happen if we started using some of the monster cards with the kids who are on the spectrum to see if we can make it reinforcing for them to look at the monster eyes and then the humanoid eyes and then the human eyes. Just a mom wondering. But we're very excited for Julian. We understand that he is one of the authors on the study because he helped to do it. He's now 14 years old. Isn't it wonderful that we live in a world where our kids can be so influential? So we want to say rah to Julian and thank you for being somebody who is helping us to learn more about our kids. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, it is time for our language tip of the week, so stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some glasses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And we had somebody write in during the break, and I wanted to cover that before we go back to the language tip. So the comment was, "Hi Shannon, I'm having a hard time getting to the acceptance of my child never getting invited to anyone's house for a play date. We've had so many kids to our house. We usually bake cookies, play sports, even do karaoke. I take pictures. I email them to the play date friend to document the play date. I do my best to help my son have a positive, successful play date. He's in 3rd grade now, and this has been going on for so long. I thought play dates were supposed to be reciprocated. It's been eating at me this school year. Is it just me? Do you or other viewers go through these feelings of rejection too?" And I'm going to put that up on the screen so that everybody can read it. And you know what? It is not just you by any stretch of the imagination. So first of all, I'm sending you a hug because that's rough. But second, wow, what an awesome mom you are, taking pictures of the play date. Ooh, you need to start a blog about how you run a play date, because I'm sure that there's other moms out there that have never thought of that would like to know about that. I'm sensing a whole new career for you, because I think that's awesome. And one of the things that I want to say when we get into that acceptance, right? Acceptance does not mean that you have to be contented with it. This stinks, right? I mean, we can all agree on this, that people should be reciprocating, but clearly they're not. And there could be a bunch of different reasons why. It could be that they just feel like they're not good at it. It could be that they're feeling nervous about the fact that they may or may not know that your child has a diagnosis, and they're nervous about what to do, and they don't want to ask you because they don't want to step on your toes. It could be so many reasons why. It could be that their house is a mess and they don't know how to clean their house, right? I'm just going to guess that it has more to do with them than it has to do with you, or that it has to do with your child. Because isn't that usually the way these things go? So if we get into acceptance about it and say, okay, you know, this is the way this has been, and I've been putting out all these great play dates and nobody is reciprocating, that's just what is. And what can I do about it? You know, is there one, because you want that experience. I know we've talked about this before on the show, that it's hard when we start sending our kids to other people's houses, but we need to do it with all the safety parameters that we can think of in place, but we need our children to have that experience, right? So is there one parent that you could work on, that their child has been coming and that you have a good relationship enough that you could say something to them and say, hey, is there any possibility that, and don't ask for a play date, because if you've been watching their child for a bunch, say, hey, is there any possibility that I could leave my child with you for 10 minutes on this day? Literally 10 minutes. Like I just have to do this thing and I have to, you know, I just can't have my child with me. Is there any way that I could leave my child with you for 10 minutes? And try to be as flexible about the time and say, you know, I just need 10 minutes to do this thing. Can you tell me when you could watch my child? Because then you're going to kind of separate things, right? That they may say, absolutely, but you know what, can I ask you some questions? And you're going to start to see what happens. Or you might see that there's some hesitation, and that you might have to say, is there a reason why? Your child comes to our house all the time. Is there a reason why you're concerned about my child being at your house? Is there something, do you have any questions for me? Is there something that you're nervous about? Because there's something, right? But it isn't necessarily your child. It may be, like I said, they don't have cool toys, everything under the sun, right? There's so many reasons why people do the things that they do. But I would see if you can't start there and ask, can I leave my child with you for 10 minutes? Maybe the boys could play. And then maybe wait a week and say, that helped me so much when my child was there. Is there any way we could do that again? And now, if it's any self-respecting mom, she's probably already aware of the fact that she has been leaning on you for play dates. And so hopefully she's going to reciprocate. If they really don't, it's because there's something that you're not going to be able to surmount right now. And again, think of every possible reason why somebody wouldn't want somebody in the house. It might be that they have a family member that they can't control and that they don't want to bring children in because they don't think it's safe, in which case you don't want to send your child, right? I can remember a circumstance in which somebody got mad at somebody and said, your kid has been over here having play dates, and what they found out was that the person was going through chemo and didn't want people to know. We don't know what goes on in other people's houses, but I do think it's totally appropriate for you to ask them to watch your child for 10 minutes and ramp up to a half an hour and a play date. And if they see that your child is fine in their house for the 10 minutes, maybe they're going to be more willing. Maybe it opens the door. But I wouldn't try it with everybody. And the cool thing is, it sounds like yours is the cool house to come to. I want to come to your house for a play date. If you're going to bake cookies and do karaoke and take pictures, I want to come to your house. And so if you're the cool mom, you know what that's going to mean as you move into teenage years? The kids are going to hang out at your house, which means you're going to know what's going on. There is a blessing in this. And seriously, start a blog if you haven't already about play dates, and we'll make sure that we cover it here on the show, because I would come to it. I would come to this blog. But you're doing an awesome, I started to say autism, you're doing an awesome autism job. And that's what's important. We can't control what other people do. We can't control what other people think. But you're getting it done. And I bet you can find one mom who will let you leave your child with them for just a little while, for a few minutes, and then ramp it up. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk about language teaching gender. Stick with us.
My name is Rocky.
Autism used to affect 1 in every 10,000 children. Now it affects 1 in every 91 kids.
TACA is one of 5 organizations helping families living with autism today.
Our kids came back to life. There's a whole community out there, and now we're a part of it.
Oh, TACA has a prize for me.
To find TACA, go to www.tacanow.org.
Please.
It's so important to us to teach our children language, right? And language is huge, especially the English language and all the different things that something could mean. It's a dicey, dicey thing. And when we get into gender, we're talking about other dicey things as well. But we need for our children to begin to identify what gender somebody is so that they can get to using appropriate pronouns down the road. So if they're looking at a little girl, that they notice if it's a little girl so that they say she. And if they're looking at a little boy, they're starting to say he. But there's a step before that where we start to identify whether somebody is a boy or a girl. And it's hard. And there are all different kinds of words that we're going to use to identify what gender someone is. This is a case where it's really important for you to state your own preferences, because there are lots of different different ways that you can teach these lessons, and it's one of the things I like to talk about with ABA is that it's not one size fits all, that you're really tailoring lessons to the way your family moves through the world and the kinds of things that you want to teach. So a couple of first points that we want to talk about with gender: decide your preferences. I remember when they were teaching this to my son and they said, okay, so when we get to teaching about the difference between men and women, do you want for women to be identified as ladies or women? And it was a big discussion in our house about which one do we want. And of course, eventually you're going to teach everything so that your child understands and can use all these terms, but you want to start with what the family preference is. And there's no right or wrong answer, right? That I know some families that say gentlemen and ladies, and we decided that we would like for them to be men and ladies, that we would teach women later on. And women, by the way, is a much harder term because it's woman and women. It's really hard. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to go with ladies, and I love it when ladies are called ladies. Maybe that's old-fashioned of me. But in any case, you want to decide your preferences. What are your beginning targets? And later on, you're going to expand it to a lot of different things, but you got to start someplace. We're going to start with matching if it's appropriate for the child. If the child already is starting to identify genders, then maybe we wouldn't do matching. But for children that we're beginning to identify gender and use it in a language sense, we're going to start with matching. It's going to make it easier for the child. So maybe we have a cartoon card that's got a little girl, and we're going to go with stereotypes. And I know it's going to drive everybody a little bit crazy, but we have to start to identify things. So we start with stereotypes for gender. And then trust me, as your child gets older, I have deep conversations with my son that he has seen people on the street that are wearing all different kinds of things, and Halloween was a very interesting time, and he has seen people that are transgender, and we have conversations about all of that, but we start with the stereotype and work into things that are less stereotypical, right? So you might have a picture of a little girl with a hair bow in her hair, and she's wearing a skirt, and you think to yourself, all right, well, how many, lots of little girls who don't wear skirts, but we're starting with a stereotype. And we have another little picture of a little girl with a skirt, and we're matching to the same ones, right? Eventually we would match to little girls who aren't the same and wearing the same clothes. Same thing with the little boys, and working I see somebody has written in a question about pronouns. We'll get to that in just a second. But matching the boys to the boys, right? And then we match the men to the men. We can work on this in lots of different ways. And eventually we're going to start with this matching, and then we're going to move to receptive, then we're going to move to expressive and tacts and intraverbals. And we'll be talking about all those terms this week, but we want our child to be able to use the term boy and girl and male and female and man and women or woman and lady or ladies in all kinds of contexts. We want them to be able to express it, and we want them to be able to understand it when somebody else says it. We want them to be able to point things out, and we want them to be able to answer questions having to do with, is that a boy or a girl? So we've got one of the early lessons in here. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, this is one of the more advanced lessons. They're working on the intraverbal. Intraverbal is when you're asking a question and answering. So in this instance, the parent or teacher says, is mommy a woman or a man? And the child responds, mommy is a woman. And so that's when we've gotten a little bit further along the line. And we have a couple of videos to show you examples of people working in different ways with this lesson with children. So take a look.
Name someone who is a man.
Firefighter is a man.
Wow, good work. Nice.
So you see the reinforcement there. Which one of these is a man? Now keep in mind that sometimes firefighters are women. So at another point in this lesson, when we're working towards generalization, there would be a picture of a firefighter who's a woman, right? But again, we're going to start with stereotypes because we have to start someplace. But don't think that that's the end. Don't think that you're teaching all these very sexist roles to your child. That's not how it's going to be. You get to continue the lesson until your child has the full lesson, but we have to start someplace. And I understand we have another example too, showing us how we work on gender. Take a look.
Put with lady. You got it! That's a lady! Good job!
And so there you see the matching. So put with lady, and she's holding a picture of a lady, and she has two pictures that are not the same as the picture she's holding in her hand, and has to decide which pile am I going to put these in. There are a whole set of lessons that revolve around teaching gender in a language sense to your children that you can find in the skills program. There's the site that you can go to find them. They're absolutely wonderful. They're a huge set of lessons, and we've just covered a brief amount, but so important that we help our children to learn gender. And I mentioned that part of this is this is the precursor to being able to teach the pronouns. And somebody wrote in and said, Shannon, why do our kids mix up pronouns? And, you know, this is such a great question. And I'm going to make sure that we ask this question of some of the experts that we're going to have in later on in the week. And I'll make sure that we ask Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet about this. There have been a lot of studies about this, but this is one of the core differences with our kids on the autism spectrum. Not all of them, but a lot of them have difficulty being able to switch pronouns for different circumstances. So being able to switch from I to you and getting the right pronoun in the right circumstance. I don't know that we know that there's a part of the brain that it affects, and I don't know that we know exactly why that is affected yet, but what we do know is that we can teach it. We can teach this, and we can turn it around, which is very exciting. And then somebody else wrote in, I'm a former kindergarten teacher with a child on the spectrum, and I cannot believe the things that come out of my mouth to help my son get girls things versus boys things. I know, isn't it shocking? I.e. pink is for girls, boys don't play with, etc. Totally sexist. But he's just not getting it, and he's 10, and I don't want him to be confused about his gender. And, you know, I know, it makes me a little nuts because I'm somebody who, you know, I don't like that really sexist kind of thing. I remember getting into a discussion with the guy at McDonald's that my son over the years, one of the things he's found really reinforcing is getting that little toy. And by the way, you don't have to buy any food to get the toy. You can just buy the toy. Or you can buy the salad and get the toy, I think for 20 cents or some weird thing that you can do. But that's very reinforcing to my child is the McDonald's toy. And they have the boy toy and they have the girl toy. Well, sometimes he likes the girl toy better, not so much anymore. But over the years, you know, I would take him as a reinforcer and he would pick the girl toy. And I can't tell you how many times I got into discussions with the guy behind the counter said, you know, but that's a girl toy. And I would say, just give me the toy. Right? And the guy behind the counter going, but it's a boy toy. And I go, it is not. It's a toy. Just give me the toy. Don't. And even one instance where the guy was saying to my son, dude, you don't want that one. It's the boy toy. I thought I was going to have to climb over the counter and tell him, ixnay on that. But on the other hand, we do go to stereotypes to teach our children because we have to start from a place that's really abundantly clear. And I promise you that if we start with a really abundantly clear and close our mind to all the sexist things that we're saying, later on we have the opportunity to say, you know, sometimes boys like pink. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, and then somebody else said, when our kids are reading chapter books, how much more difficult it must be for them to comprehend what he's reading because of mixed pronouns. It's interesting that, and we're going to talk more about this throughout the week with social skills, but my question for you is, where is your child in terms of expressive and receptive for pronouns? Because it wouldn't be uncommon for a child, even with a child with low receptive, they might have a higher receptive skill index with pronouns, that they tend to, not always, tend to hear it better than they express it, which is an interesting little thing. And somebody else says, I hate all the boy toys that are so violent. Amen to that, because you know, this is one of the reasons why there have been times that there have been toys that I've said, no, and been much happier with the quote-unquote girl toy. That's something just, you know, a cat, an animal. because boys aren't supposed to like animals. I just don't know. But in any case, we can work on the pronouns with our kids, and we can work on gender, and gender is a great thing to work on in the beginning. So again, I encourage you to check that out on skills. We are going to take a little break and come back and look at your answers to the question of the day. Right now is a great time to let us know what social skills does your child demonstrate really well. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're going to be looking at your answers to the question of the day, but somebody wrote in and said, are you going to be doing a Christmas toy or a holiday toy special? And we are. You're reading my mind. We were able last year, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson and I went to a Toys R Us and demoed some different toys, and we'll be showing you that from last year, but we're waiting. Every year Toys R Us puts out a new guide for kids with special abilities, and we're going to do a special on that. But we also, I'm really excited about this year, we're going to do one just on toys using technology for our kids, and the way different programs, different apps that you can buy, different devices that will help your kids. But it occurred to me that there was a toy that we talked about that was in the special ability guide, last year's Toys R Us special ability guide, it's really great for working on gender, and I don't know why I can't think what the name of it is, and we have it at home. I'll figure out what it is, but it's a game, a guessing game, and you put in these different cards and you pick somebody. Guess who? Thank you. Emily thought of it for me. Guess who? And it comes in all different kinds now. You can get it for like Disney princesses, or you can get it for SpongeBob, or you can just get the regular one, and you can get the travel one, you can get the electronic one. But each person, it's kind of like Battleship, that you have a person that is your person that the other person has to guess. I'm not explaining this really well, am I? But in any case, so you've picked this, they have little cartoon cards, and let's say that you picked a woman and she's got red hair and she's wearing sunglasses and she's got some kind of neckerchief thing on, a scarf on, and she's wearing earrings. And the other person has picked somebody as well, and you take turns going back and forth, and you can ask yes or no questions. And of course, one of the first questions that we teach our kids to ask is it a male or a female? And once they're able to discern, okay, well, this person is a male, this person is a female, then if somebody asks me and I've got a female, is it a male? And I say no, then they know they can close all the little windows on the male person, and they have to start looking at all the women, and maybe their next question is she wearing earrings? And I say yes. So they close all the little doors for anybody who's wearing earrings. So it helps to work on gender, but it also helps to work on, noticing different attributes. Do they have a big nose? Do they have red hair? All these different things. And it also helps them looking at faces, which is really kind of cool as well. So that's Guess Who, and as I said, they make it in many different varieties that you can do, all of them really cool. But we will be doing, and I'm going to be asking you guys I think it's next week that I'm asking you, what's the best toy that you've gotten? Because I really believe that hearing from other parents, cool toys. We were just at the ARI conference, and there was one set of parents that came up, and their children were with somebody who was very skilled in ABA while they were away at the conference. And at one point, they had given that person some money and said, we would like for you to go to the toy store and buy things that you think would help our child right now. And what was great was the dad said, you know, she came back with stuff that I would have walked right past because I wouldn't have thought about it. There was one cupcake thing that really forced their child has a really hard time with pincer grasp, and they've had a really hard time making it reinforcing enough for her. But this little cupcake thing, it had all these little tiny pieces that you had to push into the cupcake to decorate it. And this child loves this kind of thing, and she was so wanting to do it that she was working on each little piece and putting the candles on them and really creating a skill there for pincer grasp. So I think it's really, and I thought, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. So I think it's really important for parents to be able to share and say, here's the really cool toys. I'm going to be asking you guys here in a couple weeks what I'm looking for our question of the day. Here it is. No, that's not it. I'm on Facebook and I'm so busy talking to you guys about toys. I get so excited. Oh, here it is. Our question of the day: what social skill is your child great at demonstrating? If you go to, I'm looking right now at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders site, and there's a great picture that they put up with social skills, because we're talking about that all this week, that I'm loving this graph, and somebody wrote in and said that they're loving the graph too, because it really goes through and shows all the different areas of social skills. It's really kind of cool. Another person, let me get them all up here, who said, I thought I was the only one that couldn't use names. Awkward. No, you're not the only one. I am so bad at names, can I just tell you? And I'm great, like I can remember a face. I can't always remember where I met them from, but I can remember a face, but I can't remember a name. And there we were at the red carpet at Denim and Diamonds, and you know, there were some very lovely, beautiful entertainers who were there, and I was having a terrible time remembering names, even though they were people whose work I love and admire. Awkward, yes. Another person says, I never really thought about these. My son comes to the aid of family members in arguments, so I think he is a conflict resoluter. I think that's fabulous. Somebody who, you know, is there and noticing when other people are, that's a huge, great skill. I love that. Somebody else who says, great at none, but he's working on them all, and he's better than he used to be. Well, that's progress, and we'll take progress any day of the week, right? Another person says, my son is an encourager, so team building skills. I love that. You know, they say that in autism that there's no empathy, and I always think, I don't know about that, because my child is very empathetic just about very specific things, right? If he hears another child crying or a baby crying, man, he can't handle it. It's so distressing to him, and he says, somebody do something. Help that baby. Is the baby cold? He wants to problem solve it and make it better. But he, you know, really empathetic that way. Not so much for other things. You know, you take what you can. Somebody else says, my son makes great eye contact. I love that. That's fabulous. Someone else says, my son is really good at basic interaction, but his communication skills are also pretty good too. Love it. Someone else says, once not strong in, she now exhibits helping her friends when they are sad at school. There was a time that she didn't do this, smiles. I love that. And someone else says, I have one that, oh, I see. I have one that is great at team building skills and pretty good at conflict resolution, but terrible with communication. The other one is great with communication and basic interaction, but anything that remotely resembles conflict causes a meltdown. Well, you know, I mean, it sounds like it's a symbiotic relationship there, that, you know, they're finding their puzzle piece in the family of how, and what's great is that when they're a little bit older, maybe they'll be able to help each other with the other skill. And I'm loving that you guys are loving the graph. Love that. Another person who says that their child can negotiate, offer help, energize the group, and make eye contact. We're working on taking turns with communication. I'm using a painted stick. Whoever has it gets to speak, then pass it along. I go to regular meetings with people where we could use that painted stick. And if you've ever watched, there's some talk shows that have lots and lots of people on them, on a panel talking. They could use the painted stick too. I want to check one more, and then we're going to want to go to the A word, but I want to check on our own site and encourage all of you to be on our site and answer the question on Autism Live on Facebook. Okay, and somebody writes in and says affection. Well, that's a good one. That's a really good one, isn't it? All right, we are going to take a break here. You can keep writing in because everybody gets to see them. We're going to take a break and go to the A word. This is the wonderful documentary made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It's ongoing. They're following a little boy, Jack Riley, who at this point in the video is just a little over 2, but in real life, he's getting ready to turn 4. But we've gone back to the beginning of the series to sort of kind of recap how all this progress has happened. So this is a new video that we haven't seen for a while. I think it's the 10th week in, and we begin to see that while there's a tremendous amount of progress and he's gaining functional communication skills, we still don't have enough functional communication skills for him to tell us all the things that he wants to be able to do, which is frustrating for him. Very frustrating. Take a look. This is the A word.
What are you doing? He knows more about this than I do. It scares me. We're watching Happy Feet right now, and it has helped us in his feeding. As per a suggestion, we stop it and make it fun for him to take his next bite.
Take a bite. Take a bite.
Not only did he feed himself his applesauce and laugh the whole time, he fed himself 6 or 8 bites of soup, which he's never done. He's done that 2 meals in a row. So looking forward to today. We're hoping that we've made a positive change in his eating, but we will try it at approximately 12:30, I guess. We will do the same thing. I'll give him some soup and some yogurt with a banana chopped inside. And I will try to get him to watch this and sort of feed himself. Right, bud? Come in! Hi. Where are you?
Oh, hi. Hi, Jack Riley. I'm my friend. Do you remember her?
Miriam is a new therapist working with Jack Riley. Today, she's shadowing Jessica to observe and learn from her.
So right now I'm just going to probe to see what he knows, so I can find a new target for him. What is it? No, try again. What is it? What is it?
I think he's saying
Airplane. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. What is it? No, what is it? Hey, you need to do work first and then you get the toy, okay? What is it? No, you need to look better. That's a visual. You need to look better, buddy. Nope. Try again. What is it? No. Do you want your toy? Toy? Okay. Well, what is it? Okay, thank you. What is this one? Snake. Good. What's this one? Door. Okay. What's this one? Whoa, hippo. That's so good. Hippo. I think we're gonna do chicken. And then we're gonna be moving into matching soon, where we're gonna match 2D pictures to 3D objects that we have to have momentarily stimuli. So we're just gonna use like objects that are around his house, so that we have the object that we can match it to, so it's a lot easier. And then after he gets the identical, then we're gonna move into similars. So like different colored balls or different cars. Alright, bud, you ready? Okay. You ready? 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 Give me 5. I got you. Oh, you're so easy to tickle. Hi. Give me 5. I got you again. You're so easy. Give me 5. I got you again. You're easy to tickle. Okay, one more time. I got you. Where's the tickle spot? It's right here. Okay. What is it? Say chicken. Chicken. Good. What is it? Chicken. Say chicken. Good. What is it? Chicken. Chicken. Good. Sit up though. What is it? Chicken. Chicken. Very good. All right. Here you go, kiddo.
Watermelon. Watermelon. Pineapple. 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 Watermelon. Watermelon. Super cool.
Yeah, cool.
I know. We're going to be feeding now.
That's the one that's different.
Shireen was here, so I just gave him pancakes.
Okay. And happy feast. All done. Well, you know, we didn't even start yet, kiddo.
How can you be all done, bud? We're gonna eat, right? Remember?
I'm gonna try doing it for
Okay.
now. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Just to see.
So here's the
play.
pause,
Okay.
and there you can just hit the
All
pause again and
right.
play.
Okay. So we're gonna take a bite, and then we get the movie. Take a bite and then you can have the movie.
Do you want to, if you want me to try it, ordinarily he would have applesauce right now. I just look. He'll feed himself.
He'll feed himself with that better than this?
Yes.
Has he fed himself yogurt?
He hasn't yet.
Okay.
We've done applesauce and then soup, and he started on the soup. He did a few bites on the soup after finishing the applesauce.
Okay. Maybe
Whatever you think.
applesauce would be better
Okay.
for today because it's preferred, right? Versus
Yeah,
yogurt.
it's just, it's something he's always fed himself.
You wanna try it?
After 10 weeks of ABA therapy, Jack Riley's therapists are now working on feeding. They waited to work on this skill until they worked on compliance with him, since feeding is such a huge behavioral problem. They wanted to make sure that Jack Riley would listen to them before they started working on this. In order for Jack Riley to watch the movie, he must feed himself a bite. And since it's such a preferred item, they are hoping it will motivate him to eat. This is new for Jack Riley, so therefore the tantrums are going to be much bigger because he's not used to this.
That's good. Nice job. You did it. There you go. Nice job. There you go. All right, let's take another bite. One more bite. Wow, very good. There you go. Okay, take another bite.
People.
Yeah. Is Mambo there? Take another bite.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me see. Oh, all right. That's good. So when he does that, what happened earlier? It's really
In the chair? walk away.
Yeah, walk away. Good, eating. So yeah, just don't even say anything. And you know, when he's done doing his thing, you can just present it again. Still swats you away. That's okay, just walk away.
Okay.
Because even part of it could be, you know, the reaction.
Attention.
Yeah, the attention that he's looking for. And if you just kind of walk away, then he doesn't get any of that.
Right.
So hopefully that'll subside, and that's what it is. But well, I mean, we'll see. What works, what doesn't work.
Well, we had a great dinner last night with him because Cheryl does this dancing, but she's goofier than I am. But and he just cracks up and eats, and she kept turning it off, but she made it kind of a game.
All right, you want some more mambo? You want some more movie? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, happy feet. You give me a high five for eating all your applesauce. High five, you're leaving me hanging.
Jessica is giving Jack Riley verbal praise for finishing his applesauce because it motivates him. Feeding is a new skill for him, so each small step he makes is met with large enthusiasm. The hope is that the excitement that he sees from his parents and therapists will motivate him to do it again.
Right here. Ah, you got me. Want some more movie? Yeah? Okay. Here we go.
Jack Riley continues to tantrum, refusing to eat his lentil soup for about 15 minutes. All he's had to eat so far for lunch is applesauce.
Jack, want a cracker? Get something more in you, okay?
You can take over.
Okay. Alrighty.
I just wanted to see if he would feed himself the soup, but that's okay. We can do that another day.
He might just be mad now.
Yeah.
You want to just take a bite? One bite, then we'll watch this. You kidding me? Ding, 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 ding. Take a bite. Take a bite. Take a bite. I know. You have to earn it though, huh? Life gets tough. That's how you get paychecks. You earn it. Right?
Whoa.
Whoa. Whoa.
When did you notice that he had a hard time eating? Like, it's always been like this ever since?
No, this is extreme. He's very finicky. There's certain things that we have no problem with. Usually applesauce for quite a while he would eat on his own. Then he stopped, and we've just gotten him back to doing it again. Obviously pancakes he devours in the morning on his own, and we just tear him up and he eats them by himself. But new foods, and just if he's not in the mood. I feed him probably most of his lunches because I'm home during the day more often than Cheryl is. And she's more apt to feed him dinner. She probably does a better job than I do, but we do it a little bit differently. But this is extreme, to be this upset at his soup. I don't think he's digging the fact that the movie's just not on. Usually he just gets to watch the movie, and we haven't really tested him on that.
Welcome back. That's the A Word. I love this documentary, and I love that you get to see the arc. And remember that you don't have to just wait for us to show it to you. You can watch it on their very own YouTube channel, so you really can pick and choose and see and search topics. Eventually, we're going to show you they've taken on the toilet training, and it's some amazing episodes that are the more recent ones. And we're watching back more than a year ago. And I really want to talk about, we've been building up to this point because one of the biggest issues that the parents said that they were having with this particular little boy, because they're all different, right? But with this particular little boy, one of the big concerns was feeding, that he has a big reaction to some foods, and there's quite a lot of tantruming that happens around food, that if they show him even a banana, he bursts into tears. And there are only certain textures that he will eat, and very little feeding of himself, and a lot of heartache and tears and frustration and worry, because, you know, food is important. Food is love, right? And we all want to be able to nurture our children in that way. But then there's the other part of it where we have to sustain our children, and we get concerned sometimes about, are they eating enough to be healthy? And so a big concern and a big stressor for this family. So we've seen them start to systematically desensitize this young man, and they've played with fake food, and they've done all these things, and they've built rapport. And that's really important on this journey, that we don't just jump in and say, all right, you know, this is how it's going to be. They've built rapport. So he trusts Jessica, and he knows that when things are hard, and sometimes they're going to be hard, if he works through them, there's going to be big reinforcement, right? And it's so important that we build that level of trust before we take on the big issues. And for this little boy, food, big issue. And I love the dad who says, are you kidding me? Really? We've waited all this time, and we've done all this work, and now you're going to tell me it's this easy, that we're just going to stop playing the video player, and that's what's going to get him to do it? Like, if it was that easy, wouldn't I have thought of this? And then, of course, he's a little mad because it works. Ugh, right? And I so relate to this dad in that way, because sometimes I call it the duh factor, that, you know, the therapists come in and they find the function of the behavior, and they go, okay, so this is the intervention that we think is going to be most effective. And you go, what? It can't be that, what? It can't be that easy. And then when it is that easy, you're a little miffed, right? I am. I want to go, why isn't that on a billboard somewhere that I could have just known that? How come I didn't think of that? Because sometimes we're too tired. Sometimes we can't see the full behavior. And sometimes it isn't that easy too. But we start someplace. And when it is that easy, you know, it's okay if we're a little bit miffed at it, as long as we're celebrating that it's that easy too. Now, of course, this is just step one in like a 1,000-step thing to making sure that Jack Riley can eventually sit at a table and eat a healthy meal without having a war zone, right? But it's a great start. It's a great, great start. This whole idea of, okay, what's most reinforcing to him? And when we want to go after the big guns, right? You know that saying that they say about when you're going after Moby Dick, pack the tartar sauce. We have to make sure that we have the thing that's really reinforcing to the kids. Because think about it, if somebody was going to ask me to jump out of a plane, and I'm afraid of heights and I don't even fly well, if they were going to make me jump out of a plane, they'd have to have something worthwhile, or I'm not doing it. I just won't. Our kids are the same way. And if he's going to cry when he sees a banana, then we have to make sure that his paycheck is big enough. You heard his daddy saying to him, well, you got to do this because that's how you get your paycheck, right? We want to give him the paycheck, so find the paycheck that's going to get the job done. That's the reinforcer. And in this little boy, he loves to watch his videos. So they set it up, it's playing, they pause it, and he's already like, you know, I want that, and you know, there's the food. It doesn't make it like that. It's just the beginning stages of it. But what we see over time, and go ahead and continue to watch, but this begins to get the job done. It's the first step, as I said, and actually it's not the first step. We've been working on a lot of things up to this point. So maybe this is step 24, and we're going to get 1,000 steps before we get done. And you can think to yourself, man, that's just too overwhelming. But this is the way that it gets it done. And you want to get it done. So you might as well be moving along the way, right? There were some times when I remember them talking about stuff with my kid, and I would think, oh, well, you know, this is just going to take forever. And now he's 9, and the amount of things that I thought were going to take forever that are done, I couldn't possibly even begin to remember. It just starts to feed on itself. You know, it's like the snowball going down the hill. So super important, so hard, right, on all aspects of it, including being able to be humble enough to say, I didn't think of that. That's so simple. I didn't think of that. And remember that this is for this specific child. It's not like it's a one-size-fits-all. You could set up a video player in front of a bunch of kids and it wouldn't make a difference for them because it's not reinforcing enough. But for this child, it does make a difference, and it gets us started. And we'll see in the coming weeks that they teach him how to suck from a straw, and that he moves into different textures, and you know, they take it slow. Absolutely taking it slow. Now, somebody has written in about social skills IEP goals, and I want to talk about that some more. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about how we can come up with IEP goals for our child for lunch and recess. Stick with us.
I am Karen Driscoll. I'm a Marine Corps wife and mother of 3. My oldest son has autism. The strains on our typical military families are extraordinary. You add on the challenges of autism, access to care issues, and at times having to pay for effective treatments, and these families are pushed to the brink. We've lived in 5 different homes. That means 5 different medical communities, 5 different school districts, and 5 different state-run programs. The biggest challenge I face as a mother is going from bottom of wait list to bottom of wait list, never getting access to the effective services our children require. I feel like I'm constantly fighting for these services. We are working on a bill in Congress called the Caring for Military Kids with Autism Act that works to true up these policy deficits. You ask any service member overseas today, what can we do for you? They will always answer, please take care of my family at home.
Visit autismspeaks.org.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you know, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back. Somebody wrote in about, I'm going to read the question here. I'm interested in hearing social skills, IEP goals from you and your audience for lunch and recess in a mainstream setting. Thank you. And thank you for writing that in. And somebody else has additionally wrote in, I don't know if it's the same person. Hi, Shannon. Right now, the only intervention my son is getting for lunch social goals are twice a month the speech therapist does a lunch bunch in her room with a few peer models. He sits daily in a noisy lunchroom with no one helping him to socialize. Very frustrating, but I guess it is what it is. Well, you know what? That's that going back to acceptance versus contentment. You know, I think accepting that that's what it is right now, but this is where the contentment side of it kicks in. That clearly you're not content with that, and if we accept that that's what is right now, we can always be working towards something else happening. We don't have to, just because we say, oh, I accept what it is, doesn't mean that we go, okay, and it's never going to change. In fact, quite the opposite. If we accept this is what it is, the next question is, okay, so what can I do about that? So let's start with the first question about IEP goals, and I'll put that out there to everybody else too. What kinds of IEP goals, what kind of skills would you like to have your child working on during lunchtime? And I had mentioned that I just had an IEP meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I went in with 3 very specific goals for my child to work on during lunchtime. And I said, these are my suggestion, and we can look at other things, but I was looking at my individual child and said, where is he having the hardest time? Like, what's the disconnect? What am I not seeing happen at lunchtime that I wish was happening? And so I came up with 3 different goals. And one of them was a play goal, that I wanted him to play with a child, and that he would persist. That he would persist on getting somebody to play with him, and that he would be flexible about what they wanted to do. So he had a play goal for that. And then I had 2 language goals, one about repairing conversation and one about initiating conversation. My son's pretty good about initiating conversation, but there was a level of persistence that I wanted, to be able to ask somebody to play with him and persist. And then to be flexible about what they wanted to play, and then lastly to repair conversation, because there are sometimes that my son will start talking and he just will go on and he doesn't notice if somebody's listening or if they're tuning out or if they're still interested. So those were my goals. Now, what I did on the computer here is I went into the skills program to show you how, and I can't show you my son's individual skills program, but I went into one of our fake children, Skills, Liva Rooney, the little girl that I named Fake Child. And I went into her social skills, and for instance, this is how widespread this is. There is a set of lessons on determining friendship. It's in social interaction, in the social curriculum here. And what this skill does is helps you determine, they're lengthy, there are a whole bunch of lessons in it, and it helps for a child to determine what kind of behavior makes you a friend and what kind doesn't. So I went into the lesson, and there's a little I. I'm going to put my cursor around it. I've got it behind the box here. And when you look at the different individual lessons here, it tells you what the beginning age is, whether it's a building block skill, what it is. And there's videotape sometimes of the lessons, but this I here that's lighting up there gives me information about this skill. And when I click on that and I open it up, for this particular lesson, it tells me it's in the social domain. It tells me the average age of the skills, that for a typically developing child between, they want me to zoom in here, between the ages of, but I'm gonna have to make my box bigger. I am so not computer savvy, but let's zoom in here so that you can see all the different things that it shows you. Is that better? Okay. All right, here we go. So average age of skills, that for a neurotypical child, ages 3 to 4, they will begin to answer hypothetical questions such as, what would you do if? And they answer why questions. In this particular lesson, and again, there's tons of them, but I just picked one. If you want to be or are friends with a person, would you? And then you fill in a behavior. And then the child says yes or no, and the therapist or parent says why or why not, because. So for instance, here's one of my examples. The child has been yelling at his or her friend Kelly. When Kelly does not do what the child wants, the therapist or parent asks, if you want to be friends with Kelly, should you yell at her? And the child says no, and the parent says, why not? And the child says, because it's not nice, or because she might think I don't like her. This response option is more advanced and it requires perspective taking. So, but just, it's not nice. It's rude. And there are other examples here, right? And so I love this about the lessons because it gives me examples. But if I go to the next column next to it, I'm just going to scroll over here, what I see are that it gives me, for this lesson, the IEP goal and the IEP benchmark. So what I do here is I just say, and I get to fill in the date to customize it for myself, by 6/10 of 2013, Shirley will be able to identify why a presented behavior is friendly or unfriendly and exhibit correspondence between what she says and what she does versus what she would do versus what she actually does, in a given opportunity to follow a friendship rule across. And here I fit in settings. So I would probably put in the classroom and on the playground. And people, so that she does this with friends, with peers, and with teachers, with 100% accuracy in 3 out of 5 opportunities as measured by, and then you fill in the person who you think is going to be responsible for measuring this, that maybe it's the yard duty, maybe it's the recreational therapist, this new term that I'd never heard of before, or maybe it's a one-on-one aide or a 3-to-1 aide, somebody who's assigned to the playground. But we go in with this, and you can even give them the benchmark so that they can put it in when they're saying whether or not the child did this. And it gives you the language that goes with this particular lesson. Now, how do you pick which thing? That's a little bit more difficult. But for me, and this is why I love skills, this is one of the reasons why I talk to you guys about this and say I just love it, I went in and answered all the questions for my son. And then I work on things, but when I see that there's something that I went back into his program and said, and I looked at all the things that he's not doing and looked at all the lesson names of them and said, yes, this is part of what's breaking down for him. And I was able to pick that really quickly. There's the different names for all of the different lessons. You know, is your child able to initiate the conversation, and they start the conversation? If they don't, then maybe that's a good thing to put in there. Is it that once the conversation starts to take place, your child, like my child, monologues and doesn't pay attention? So that's repairing conversation. Is it that your child doesn't know how to share and take turns? So that would be a different goal. Is it that your child isn't flexible about what they play and the rules have to be this and otherwise they can't play it? Then that would be a flexibility. Is it, you know, that your child needs to be given some rules? My child, we added the rule that he has to play with at least one child for a couple of minutes during lunch. Otherwise, he goes and he talks to the yard duty people and he picks up trash and he doesn't interact. I can't have that. This is an opportunity for him to interact. So, you know, I would encourage you, you can get a free trial on skills and go in, and even if you just have time to do the social language skills to see what this is all about, I think once you see it, you're going to want to stay because it's amazing how much there is to it. But the IEP goals are there for you. And you don't have to go pick them out of thin air, and you don't have to, if you've answered the questions first about what your child can and cannot do, then they're appropriate for your child. And honestly, I went in and said these to the team, and they were thrilled and said, let's get him evaluated by a recreational therapist, and we'll put that person there. They'll, you know, maybe they don't come every single lunch period, but you know, we'll see progress. And it is a part of our children's free appropriate public education that time when they are at lunch and when they are at recess is supposed to be time in which they are continuing to work on skills that help them to progress in life and make them available. If nothing else, make it an OT goal. That part of OT is to help them to progress when they are done with school. And schools get dicey about this, but the reality is that when you're setting up your child's full, you know, if you say I've got 40 hours of ABA that is being funded at home, usually they'll say, well, we don't want a child to have more than 40 hours of activities scheduled a day. So they look at the school day and they say, we're going to subtract that from your total because that time, and I went in and argued and said no, because he's not having instruction all that time. And I was told, no, because when he's at lunch and when he's at recess, then it's still working toward, oh, well then fine. Then let's have IEP goals for that as well. And we can argue that. We can go in and say that that is important. So don't let go of your frustration. Be frustrated that nothing is happening, but this is how you can go in and change it. And by the way, we don't have to wait for an IEP meeting to be called. We can request an IEP meeting. We can request an addendum to the IEP. It helps if we, I see you guys have written in a bunch of stuff. It helps if we are really clear about where the deficit is. Otherwise, we have to ask the school to look for the deficit, and we can do that as well. Okay, here's one that says, what programs have you heard about to help children at recess get involved with appropriate social games? Are we talking about like playing kickball and those kinds of things? Because if it's that it's the social, the games of hopscotch and all those things that are going on, you may want to ask for your child to be evaluated for APE, adaptive physical education, or in my case, what they said to me was, we'd like for him to be evaluated for a recreational therapist. Didn't know it existed, didn't know that was a possibility, love it. And apparently that's a different funding pool. Who knows these things until we ask, right? But one of the things that we do at home is try to work on whatever the skill part of the thing is. So if it's basketball, then we work on the basketball skills at home so that when he's at school, it's basketball, but he, is able to work on some of the social things. Because what happens sometimes is that there's a motor skill and a social skill and a language skill that have to be all together with everything to make the thing work. So try to pick out different parts of it to work on it at home and ask for help. Ask for the OT person, ask for the APE person, ask for the recreational therapist. Another person says, it seems like the acoustics of the lunchroom, playground, and gymnasium are all set up for failure for our kids. Being able to focus on hearing or speaking, very frustrating. Yes, but we can ask for accommodations for that as well. Whether it has to be that your child, if you find the right amount of earplugs so that they can tolerate that noise level. And also you can ask for more opportunities to desensitize so that if it's the echoey, and I'm somebody who's really sensitive to that, by the way. You can ask to bring your child in during off hours to work on things in the echoey space so that they can get used to it, and you can heavily reinforce them and nobody else is there, whether it's just going into the gymnasium and bouncing a basketball around and reinforcing the dickens out of it. I've heard of people sticking just an earplug in one ear and making sure that the child sits, so we're minimizing half of it, but the ear that they're hearing the child talk, I don't know, because then, and varying the ear because you don't want to create a problem there. And of course there are special earphones, but when the children that they can put on to minimize that amount of echoey, but then we run the risk of that becoming the thing, right? Although, I see that the older kids all have those earphones around their neck like it's a cool thing. I don't know, maybe, so maybe the child can put earphones on while they're eating and have it just be deadened, or listen to classical music or something, and then when it's time to be social, take them off. You pick and choose, but it's hard. I do think that, if the economy weren't so bad, I would be asking for some accommodation, like, putting some mats on the walls to kind of deaden the sound a little bit. It would actually help everybody. But with the economy, it's an uphill battle, right? So pick and choose your battles. Okay, so that's it in terms of the social things. And again, I encourage you to look at skills and see if there's something that you can find there in terms of IEP goals that are specific for your child. It's not one size fits all by any stretch of the imagination, but all of the lessons that are there have a corresponding IEP goal. It just makes it so much easier. It's much more productive. We have a question about new foods, but let's take a break and come back and talk about trying new foods. Stick with us. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm Shannon Penrod, and with me in the kitchen right now is Emily Goodwin. She's the technical director of our show and very creative, so I've asked her to be here with me to show you some really fun, easy, and healthy recipes that you can do for Thanksgiving with your children. Okay, so the first thing we want to show you how to do is make this lovely fall bouquet of vegetables. What we've used here are many different colors of peppers, but we made some awesome dip that are holding the skewers of the vegetables so that, yes, Emily's showing you, your kids can dip them in. It really encourages them to eat their colorful veggies. And the dip was made with sour cream, cream cheese, and a lovely organic ranch dip mix. So easy to find and easy to make, and if you chill it, it sets up a little bit harder so that you can stick the skewers in and they stand up. So what we need to make the actual leaves are lots of different colors of peppers that we have, and some skewers and some cookie cutters. Before the kids come though, you want to prep a couple of things and get them ready, because you're going to need a sharp knife to cut into the pears. I'm taking off the top of the pear and the bottom, and I'm removing that to the side, just making a cut into it, and I'm going to take out the seeds and the little spines as much as I can so that I can lay it as flat as possible. And Emily, how about if you pick out a cookie cutter for me there that I'm going to cut. And if you have time, you can cut all these little spines out so that it makes it easier for the kids. And then invite the kids in with the cookie cutters, and you lay it flat. And she's picked this wonderful leaf. I'm going to find a spot where it's going to fit pretty well, and I want to start it, but don't get too far before I take a plate, stick it on top of the cookie cutter, and push down. And you can hear the little crunch sound. It just makes it easier on the hands when you do that. And you can see that sometimes there's little shreds that I need to take care of, but it makes a lovely leaf. And I'm going to hand that off to Emily so that she can skewer it while I take another piece of pepper. This is from a red one. I'm going to make a lovely maple leaf out of this one. I'm going to start it, put the plate on it, and crunch it. And the kids love it. Makes a terrible little crunchy noise, but it's really kind of fun. Get some aggression out, pull it out, and just clean it up a little bit around the edges. But you get the idea. It makes a lovely, crisp autumn leaf that's so colorful. And we stick them in the dip, and the kids enjoy taking them out of the pot and sticking them in the dip and eating them. It's a wonderful way to introduce them to the fun of fresh vegetables and get the rainbow inside them, because we always talk at my house about we need to eat the rainbow. We know that all those colors are good for us, and it tastes good. Wonderful. Easy to do. And now we are going to make some really awesome fruit turkeys. We need a Bosc pear, we need an apple and an orange. This is kind of a light-skinned orange, but it is an orange, and some lemon juice. What I've already done is taken half of a lemon and squeeze it, because we don't want our apples to get brown. Just squeeze it. I know it's spitting at us both. That's okay. It smells good. And I would probably, depending on the age of my child, prep some of this ahead of time. But if they're good with dull knives, and you don't need a sharp knife for any of this, then you can have them help. I just cut the pear in half. And if you wanted to, if your child's a big fruit eater, you could go ahead and core it now. But we're going to assume that they're not going to eat the whole thing. And she's placed her turkey there. Now I'm going to take an apple that's been washed, and I'm just going to cut it into segments. I'm going to take the time to core these and have you dip them in the lemon. That's going to prevent it from browning, because we know that our kids generally don't like to eat things that are brown. They say it's gone bad. Dipping it in the lemon, it gives a little bit of tang and keeps it from browning. What I like about this is that we're encouraging our children to play with our food. And that's a good thing to get them to eat healthy. Have them play with the food. Arrange it like feathers around the plate. I think that's probably enough. And then I'm going to take the orange and cut it into segments. And these are going to become other feathers on our turkey. And you could put other fruits in, and you could put other vegetables in if you wanted to. You could also put it on a bed of some kind of nut butter if your child doesn't have allergies to those. You could do peanut butter or almond butter, anything like that. So we've got them all arranged so that it looks like feathers. We have to give this turkey some character. So we're going to take half of a cashew, and I'm going to have you figure out where his nose goes and just jam it right in there. And then these are all natural, dehydrated. They're just dried cranberries that we're going to use for a snood. And go ahead and stick a snood next to his little nose. They start to really have some character. And what we did was took really organic, fresh, dried mango pieces, and with scissors cut little feet. And the kids can do these with kitty scissors and plop those feet right on there. And this is a great thing to give to a child, something to do, and then they get to eat their turkey, gobble it up. Really healthy, really fresh tasting, fabulous stuff for our kids. Awesome. Gobble, gobble.
Gobble, gobble. Now we're moving on to our politically correct Native American corn cookies. We have some organic candies here. We have some generic white frosting. We have some fruit roll-up here.
You can get these organic and vegetable colored so that you aren't using artificial colors and flavors. If you choose to, you pretty much have to order them online, but you can get them.
Yes. And then we have just some oval-shaped cookies. You can use any kind of cookie. You can use shortbread or wafer. These are just the ones that we have here. So I split my cookie in half. And then you're just going to use a little bit of frosting. And you're only actually frosting one end of the cookie. So you don't even need that much frosting. And then we're going to use our candies and decorate it to look like an ear of Native American corn.
Mine's very orange. I don't know why. Okay.
So it should look like this when you're there. And this is the hard part, because the fruit roll-up is a little sticky, and I have a sharp knife, but you certainly don't need one. It's very soft to cut. And this one happened to come in 2 colors, so I cut the blue piece off, or you can cut just 1/2 of your fruit roll-up. You're just gonna wrap the bottom half. This just helps support the leaves once you start to attach the green. So you're just wrapping the bottom half of the cookie. Then with the green part, you're gonna wanna cut some leaves just like this. And I cut about 4 of these out with a piece of fruit roll-up I have left. They don't have to be perfect.
And kids will enjoy this, and you really can use a table knife for this. In fact, I'm going to do that with my table knife here.
There we go.
Oh, that's super duper easy. It's fun too. It's a little on the sticky side. This is a great sensory thing.
And then from there, you're just gonna attach your leaves as if it were an ear of corn. So they'll flap out just a little bit, and I start with the back 2 leaves. And it stretches, it's fruit roll-up. And then front 2 leaves. So it's starting to look like an ear of corn. And then I use the extra fruit roll-up just to wrap the bottom of the cookie to complete the green, because sometimes you can see through to the blue. But then that's it, and you've got your little ear of corn cookie.
Mine's not fully done, but he's coming along. Cool.
Pretty easy.
Very fun and tasty too. Welcome back. We had a question about food to go with our November food here. I'm showing it to you right now. Somebody wrote in and said, I would love for my daughter to try new foods when she gets her lunch. She used to love all sorts of foods, including fruits and veggies, when she was little, and not just baby food, and now she can't stand any of them in any form. This is a great question and a great comment, because I think we all see that our kids, you know, that kind of thing can happen. Here's my first question for you. And this is going to sound like a totally random question, but what's the main staple in her diet? If she's not loving the fruits and vegetables, what's the thing that she's mostly eating? And because my question is it a carb? And here's why I'm asking that. What we see sometimes with some of our kids, and not just some of our kids, by the way, some of us, myself included, that what happens is that if somebody gets, you know, there's the plate that they always show us about, on a plate, there should be an equal percentage of carb, a protein, and fruit and vegetable. And then there should be a dairy on the side, is I think what the USDA thing is recommended. I like to think of it though as that protein, the carb, and the fruit or vegetable 3, that's a good place to start, right? And what happens a lot of times with not just our kids, but with all of us, is that the carb stuff tends to be the stuff that's the wow factor in today's society, that it's the saltier, it's the tastier, right? So when we start to eat more of the carb, really has an effect on how much our taste buds want to have the fruit and vegetable. Is that scientific? No. I'm just telling you in terms of what I hear from parents and what I have seen with my child and what I have seen with myself, is that sometimes, I mean, given the choice, if you said to me, and I love my vegetables, love them, but if you put two things on the table and you said, here's a lovely portion of broccoli, or here is a lovely portion of ice cream, you can pick which one you'd rather have. I'd love to tell you that I would pick the broccoli. I'm afraid that I would probably pick the ice cream. And I see with my son that there is a level of carb that he can handle, and where he still eats his vegetables, and there is another level where if he has just a little bit more carb, he loses all interest in the fruits and vegetables that he will eat on a regular basis. And my child has been very good about eating his veggies all along the way, but we still cycle in and out of that. I got to find the carb factor. So I'm wondering if that's where your child is moving towards, and if it might be interesting. Our kids need carbs. We're not ever saying that they should have carbs ripped out of their diet. But if you're seeing that your child is really into eating like nacho chips and potatoes and things like that, and that's taking over, then dialing back on that and making sure that you get that 3-portion plate, that there's the protein, there's the fruit and vegetable, and there's the carb. And one of the things that when we get that way with my son, what we do is that I give him his plate, and he, I watch what he eats first, and it's very interesting because depending on the time of year and what's on the plate, he'll plow through different things first, right? That maybe he eats the carb, or the protein first, and it's very interesting though that he'll eat that and then he asks for more of that. And my answer always is, you can have more of something after you've finished everything on your plate. And that I'm very particular about that. And when I do that, by the way, then he, not only is he eating more of the fruit and veg, we really have to limit the fruit with him as well, but then he will request it more and he likes it more. There literally is like this chemical balance in him, not necessarily in your child, where it tips and he no longer wants the fruit and vegetable. So my question is about that. And I know it's hard when you're going to school because how can you weigh that? But depending on how your child is, maybe it's time to institute some sort of a token system where, and of course it's a little bit the honor system, but maybe, excuse me, you can pull somebody else in on it, that whoever is in the lunchroom, sometimes a friend. I mean, there have been times when I've had to say to my son's friends at school, hey, Jem is working on this today, and I'm going to ask you today whether he did it. And they're like, oh, okay, that's really, they love to be on the job, so to speak. So maybe saying to her, okay, when you go to lunch today, I need for you to eat a vegetable. I need you to, and having the discussion about what the proteins, the carbs, if they're choosing their lunch, if they are at an age where they are choosing the lunch, then it's not an inappropriate time to have the conversation about what the protein is, what the carb is, what the vegetable is. Otherwise, maybe it's time to scale back and say, we're sending your lunch. And this is what you're getting. And at least in that way, you're limiting the amount of the other stuff. Maybe they still don't eat the vegetable, but I don't know, with my child, I see that over time, if he doesn't have as much carb, he will go to the fruit and vegetable. Giving that a try, but also offering reinforcement of saying, I'm going to check to see whether you ate the vegetable. And if you did, then we're going to get to go do this after school. And I'm going to check with your friend Sally to see if you ate it. It's not a guarantee, right? But you could be moving in a direction and hopefully getting some progress on trying other things. Food is a big issue. It's emotional. We like what we like, right? But if we're moving towards our children being as independent as possible, we need to start really early on helping them to make good choices for themselves. And when they can't make good choices, ensuring that they don't have the run of the lunchroom, so to speak. Right? But we can make it reinforcing for them. All right, let's take a break. And we're like seriously out of time. We're going to take a quick break and come back and finish out the show. We'll save binocular vision for tomorrow. So quick break and we'll be right back.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. I was an institution, a hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, make simple desire requests, I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
My name is Deli Popola, and I'm one of the creators of TheOutSpot.com. TheOutSpot.com is an online support system for families and specialists who are affected by autism across the whole world. Share inspirational stories, find resources in their area. Hope you can join.
Welcome back. We had the person who was asking the question about the child and what she was eating wrote back and said she likes white food, chicken, bread, fries, pasta, cheese. And obviously, I mean, the chicken is a protein and the cheese is a protein, but it's sounding like a lot of that stuff is carb rich. And sometimes how we cook the chicken and how we, the cheese is high in a lot of fats and things, really kind of part and parcel for what tends to happen. Now, a couple of other things that we can consider doing is that sneaking things into other things. So if you're making chicken and pasta, sneaking something else into it. And you can decide how much to sneak in. We had a big conversation about this the other day, about sneaking food in. And somebody said, yeah, I just don't know how that would really, you're just trying to sneak broccoli into something and we'll all taste it. And I said, no, I mean, the Jerry Seinfeld's wife wrote a whole cookbook about sneaking foods into other things, and I understand that the brownie recipe where you sneak in a full serving of broccoli into it, my husband's tasted it and did not know that it had broccoli in it. So it's a matter of sneaking the right amount in, and over time you can make it a larger amount. But I would start sneaking some foods back in. Your taste buds get used to certain things, right? I know even over the summer, and I'm a big veggie eater, there was a lot of veggies that I were eating, and they were seasonal veggies. And the other day, I had a delicata squash for the first time in probably a year, and I'm telling you, it was a life-changing experience. It was so good. And I had forgotten how good that kind of thing could be. And I tell the story about when my husband and I started dating, and my husband, we went someplace and I brought a picnic and I had apples for us to eat. My husband said, I haven't eaten an apple and I don't know when. And he bit into it, and it was just, he said, man, I had forgotten how good these things were. So our kids, we need to, you know, if they've had it before and liked it, they will like it again. We just need to change the mix on how much they're getting of which things. And if she wants the fries, that's great. And I'm not saying take the fries out, but you get this many fries and you get this much vegetable. And if you want more fries, you have to have eaten the vegetable in order to get more fries. And you decide what the percentages are that are appropriate for your child. And, you know, don't try to scale Mount Everest with broccoli the first day. But, you know, maybe it's one piece of broccoli and there's 10 French fries on the plate, and she finishes the 10 French fries, and she's got to eat the one piece of broccoli to get the other 10 French fries that would have been in the portion that you would have given originally. So it's a little bit of a bargaining chip. You get half of it and then eat the broccoli and you get the rest of it. Nothing wrong with that. And for the other stuff, sneak it in, sneak it in. There are ways of doing that. Especially with chicken. We're going to start doing some more cooking recipes. But one of the things that we did that everybody in my house tends to love is a pounded chicken recipe where you put green beans, you pound out the chicken really thin, you roll it with like 5 green beans in the middle, and roll it up and cook it that way. And everybody eats the green beans. I don't know what it is. People in my house that have never eaten green beans in their life will eat them because you've cooked them with chicken. Go figure. So be inventive about how you go about it, but don't give up on it. Don't, because, you know, I don't know how old she is, but you want to make sure that they stay healthy, especially in the teen years. All right, we're at the end of the show, and Emily's showing you all the different ways that you can be in touch with us and all the different ways that you can watch the show. I want you to know that the conversation continues even after we're gone, and we appreciate when you guys write in through the night or call in, or we got a big, exciting show for you tomorrow. Really looking forward to it. And of course, on Wednesday, don't forget, Ask Dr. Doreen. This is a new segment that we're doing. It'll start right at the top of the show. That's 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's 10 a.m. Here on the West Coast. And of course, your clocks, some of them got changed over the weekend, some of them didn't. So plan accordingly. But send your questions in. This is a great opportunity. She is such a wealth of information, Dr. Doreen Granpeche. She truly is a visionary. She has been working successfully with children on the autism spectrum for over 20 years. I don't think there's a thing that can happen that she hasn't seen. There's nothing to shock her. So it's the person that you'd most want to ask a question of, and I'm looking forward to hearing your questions, and I'm really looking forward to hearing her answers. I know we're all going to learn a lot, and it's not just once. This is going to be every Wednesday, so make sure you tune in on Wednesday for that. Ask Dr. Doreen. Until tomorrow, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.